Hi, and welcome to the podcast, Use Your Powers for Good. I'm your host, Carolyn Ofer-Moselle, and I am so glad that you're here. This is a podcast to inspire leaders, managers, and supervisors to use your powers for good and put more kindness into the world. Today's guest is Myrna Nejat. Myrna is a talent acquisition specialist with over 15 years of experience working with Fortune 500 companies. She partners with mid to executive level hiring managers on finding the best candidate for their open positions. Myrna encourages job seekers to be authentic, confident, and passionate. She is inspired by people's unique path and the journey that will drive them to fulfillment. Today, Myrna is going to take us behind the curtain. Woo! for some for some recruiter insight that you can position yourself to get and so that you can position yourself to get and grow the job and career that you want. So welcome, Myrna. We are so glad that you're here.
Thank you for having me. This is fantastic.
So tell us about your work as a talent acquisition specialist.
Sure. So my role is to speak with hiring managers that have open positions on what they're seeking for that open position. And I'm also speaking to job seekers all day long about what they're looking for, what's going to be the right match for them. What I think might be most surprising to people is that when I do speak to hiring managers, the job description is either more flexible than that those people might imagine, or it might be more narrow. So my job is to really create that relationship on making that perfect match.
Awesome. So what are hiring managers looking for outside of just like your expertise?
Right. I mean, there's to your point, they're looking for the expertise. They might be looking for particular years of experience or a particular skill set. But I'd say outside of that, there are three things that really come to mind. One is they want to hear that passion, that love of their work really come through. The other thing is drive. Like, how is that person going to make an impact or affect change in this next role? And the third, I would say, is having an authentic why. Like, why this company? Why this job? Why now? So I'd say those three things are what hiring managers truly look for outside of just the expertise, years of experience, skill sets.
So it was passion, drive, and an authentic why, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I can see that because I was a hiring manager for a while, well, really all through my city government experience. And but I can say that towards the latter part of my career, and I don't know if you consider this part of this list, but I started hiring, I called it the infrastructure set of skills, and that outside of expertise, that was like you said, is the person are they there for the purpose or the paycheck?
Right. That's exactly what it is.
And to try to understand, because the job could be taught to a certain degree, because you always have to kind of, there's a learning curve, acclimating to the environment and all that, and taking what and applying. But, if you are not there for the purpose and just the paycheck, then that will really affect your outcome.
Right.
So
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, not only that, it's a way to really stand out, right? So people always talk about, oh, there's so much competition in the market. So let's say you're up against 2 or 3 people that have a similar skill set. What's going to make you stand out is that passion, that drive, and knowing that authentic why and that purpose, to your point.
Now, I think that, and I want to, you just reminded me about an applicant I experienced about maybe 6 years ago now. And she was really good. We had an executive assistant position open, but she called me like every day twice a day, in the morning and in the afternoon, in the evening,
Right.
before we close, like, just asking, I'm excited about like potentially working here,
Right.
when do you expect to making the decision? And
Yeah.
I wanted to say, like, the last call we had earlier, the same thing applies. That's when I'm making the
Right.
decision.
Right. No, there's
So,
definitely a fine line between passion and
mhm,
excitement over something and being a stalker.
right.
You want to really be mindful of, I always tell people, they'll ask me, is it okay? I haven't heard back from the company. It's been a week since my interview. I say, absolutely reach out. I don't want you to ever feel terrible about reaching out. But again, I think there's that fine line between reaching out, asking what's going on with the position, wondering if you're still a candidate in the race, versus being that stalker type that's going to call every day or email every day. Nobody's going to like that.
No, I did not like that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And so what questions should they ask when they call to make the inquiry
To make the inquiry
about whether
about what the status
the
is.
timeline is? Yes,
Yeah,
the status.
yeah. I always go back to being authentic. I'm going to use that word a lot. I think, is there a reason why you're reaching out? Is it because maybe you're in the process of a couple of other job opportunities and it's really about the timeline, right? So
Mhm.
if that is the case, then I think it's a very easy conversation to have, which is either by email or by phone, depending on the relationship you have
Mhm.
with the person at the company. But let's say it's an email, you can simply write, thank you so much again. I really enjoyed my interview from X date with so and so. I'm in the process of another round of interviews that seems to be wrapping up. And so I wanted to just reach back out to see if there was any progression with my candidacy.
Mhm. Okay, no, that's excellent.
Yeah.
That
And if
way,
it and if there isn't an
yeah.
interview, but you're just curious and it has been a week, I don't think it's such a bad thing either to reach out and say, hi, it was a great interview I had on X day with so and so. I was just wondering if there was an update on my candidacy.
And people should follow up their interview with a thank you of some sort. So that's the first.
100%.
That's the first. That's the first step.
What happened to that?
I
Like, I
know.
don't know, Carolyn, you and me, like we grew up old school. And
Right.
I have to say, I have a lot of hiring managers that will absolutely discount a candidate if they don't send a thank
Mm-hmm.
you. So
Mm-hmm.
send those thank yous. Today, they're done by email. It's rare that you get the card. So it's really
Yeah.
up to you. But I'd say at least an email right after the interview.
Yeah. That the old way was the card, and there's still some people who send cards. And I have a good friend who swears on thank you cards,
Yes.
and periodically I'll send them. I've tried to get into the habit of sending them because I think that they are impactful. I like
They
getting them when
are.
I do get them.
Yeah,
But
especially by snail mail, right? We all love the snail mail. It's so
right,
we're like
but
little kids opening up a,
yeah.
holiday present.
But when you say snail mail, that brings to the attention that mail is really like snail mail today, definitely. And so your thank you note may not get there in time. So that's a
Yeah,
consideration as well. So
just go
we
with email,
but
especially how fast this job market's moving.
yes. But so the point is send a thank you note.
Yes, for sure.
So
Do I have time for a quick story on that
yeah,
one? I mean, if
definitely.
we haven't driven this point home, I don't know what will. I had a communications position open recently, and nobody was sending thank you cards. I'm like, this is a communications role. Let's show that you can communicate. So thank you for letting me share that one. I thought that was
Yes. But I have had some experiences where the communications person is not very communicative.
right. That's a flag
It
right
always
there.
made me smile. Like, how does
Right.
that work? But
But think like if you were in finance
uh-huh.
or an IT role
Yeah.
or something that's not very traditionally a communicative kind of
Mhm,
a
mhm.
role, what kind of an impact that would make if you just sent a thank you note.
Right, exactly. And
Yeah.
it's always good to separate yourself in a good way. In a good way.
Yes, in a
Not the
good way.
stalker phone calls,
In
but
a
in a
good way.
good way.
Exactly.
So tell me, so in this world today, interviews are so different. And before I left my, previously my position, I had applied for like a position that got interviewed, like the call for interviews like 6 months later. So I had even forgotten that I had applied for it, to be honest with you. But I went on the interview because I wanted to like practice and understand what was happening in the world, because I hadn't been in the job market in that way for so long. And Myrna, I started at 9 a.m. and ended like at 1.
Okay.
And so I was like, is this what was happening now? And I guess it was a good thing, because I interviewed with a long list of people.
Right.
And then I got called back for a second interview with the second long list of people.
Right.
But then they decided to move forward with an internal candidate.
Wow.
But it was exhausting.
Yes.
And so, but is that the trend now?
It's interesting that you mentioned that. I would say up until mid-COVID, if I can use that terminology, we were still, at least the companies that I've experienced working for, as well as, I have a lot of talent acquisition friends that work in other companies. We are all trying to work on reducing the amount of people that a candidate interviews with for many different reasons. And I think that in the middle of COVID, it became very, very apparent that if we didn't do that, we were losing candidates.
Yeah.
Another interest, because candidates were getting tired, burnt out through the process. Especially, like, to your point, you had to come back for a second round. Like, you're already there for hours, right? And it's like, oh my gosh, I have to take off a whole other day and do the same thing. So especially people at the, I would say director and below positions, it's much more difficult for them to take that much time off of work. So yes, we were losing candidates. Also, since, especially I would say, let's call it last summer, we really started seeing the market pick up. And I've been counseling my client groups, my hiring groups. We've got to reduce it down to 2 interviews tops. We can't do 3 rounds, 4 rounds anymore. We've got to reduce the number of panelists, because you know what? There's just too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yes.
And I was reading an article actually recently about Google, and they wrote something about how after 4 interview panelists, it was a law of diminishing returns. So they had you could make it, right?
Yeah.
If 4 people meet somebody, you should be able to make a decision after that.
Exactly.
So law of diminishing returns. And also, I mean, think about how much time it takes for those interviewers out of their day. Like, I hope you were just the only candidate, but more than likely they had 3 or 5 that they had to get through.
And I didn't think about that. Like, on the other side of that, that's like a whole week's worth of time.
Yeah, let's call it 30 minutes, right? Times 5 candidates. It's 150 minutes. I hope my math is correct.
That sounds right.
Does it sound right?
Yes.
That's why I'm in recruiting.
Right.
Hired as accountant. But I mean, that's a lot of hours.
Yes.
That's a lot of hours.
Yeah. And
so 15 hours. So one person's, schedule. I would say now with COVID, I'm hearing people are getting jobs after a first round of interview with 1 or 2 people. I'm really seeing the process speed up.
That's good. That's good to hear.
For all of us, right?
Yeah. No, tell me, I know that, so once people are getting hired, I've been reading how the average, and I think I may have heard this from you, on your your debut appearance.
Yeah.
That the average young person stays in the job like 2 years.
Yeah. So again, you and I are probably more old school, but the days of people staying in a job 5, 10, 20 years, it's starting to really disappear. The younger generation, I'll say, they're all about their career, their next steps, growing, developing fast. And part of it is that the companies that they're working for, if they're startups, some are surviving, some aren't, right? So they are moving on for those reasons because they have to.
Right.
Or the companies that they're with are slow to develop them because of their infrastructure. They might just be so large that it takes a while in their organization to go from this level to this level. So they'll jump ship to get that next level. So yeah, I would say it's not very uncommon for people to stay in roles 1.5, 2 years before moving on to another job. Yeah.
I was gonna say that amazes me because you're just finding like the restroom like at the end of the first year.
I know. But I forget what I was gonna say.
Oh, I'm sorry, I interrupted.
Oh no. I was just gonna say that as a recruiter working with hiring managers, they still love the stability. So that's what I was gonna say is that if you can stick it out, because what it shows is that you have perseverance, that when times get rough, you stick it out. You go through the hard times with the company. Obviously, if the company shuts down, of course you need to go find a job. But it's a very hard story to believe when you see people's resumes, a year, 9 months, 6 months, a year. At some point, it's not the company, right?
Right.
So you want to be very thoughtful around your timing.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because I was helping a friend source candidates for an executive assistant position. And I kept seeing like all of these like very short time frames where people were working. And my first inclination was like what I usually would do is like if I see like a lot of that, then I just put them to the side and I'll come back if I need to.
Yes.
Or if I have to, but it was like everybody. So I had to step back and say, okay, is this like just the trend now? Again, I haven't been in the job market for a long period of time. And then, when I hired people before, I would just kind of like put those to the side in order to get people who had more longevity because being in city government, I was looking for people who had more longevity and were willing to persevere and stick it out.
Right.
But is that like the trend to like, so when do you say it's the person and not necessarily just the trend?
I mean, honestly, if the resume, like I actually looked at a resume today that I was hemming and hawing over because she looked great for the job. And so, honestly, it just has to come out in the interview. I'm going to interview her. I want to find out what's going on. And, I'd say to somebody that has a resume that does look like that, just be prepared for that kind of a question so that you have a good answer. The answer needs to be authentic. I always use that word. It has to be authentic, right? It has to be, look, I love it when candidates tell me before I even have to ask, like, I know my resume looks like I jump around a lot, but here are the reasons. I was at this company for, a year, but then my partner got a job in New York. So I had, so I moved and then I landed at a startup. And unfortunately at that startup, things crashed and burned, after 6 months, the company had to go under. So being able to tell that story is important. And now what I'm looking for is a home. Maybe you can relate it back to maybe one of your first jobs where you were there 7 years or whatever it was. Or, I'm really looking for a place that's stable. And this company, I've done a lot of research on you guys, and it looks like the financials look strong. Looks like people are happy working there. I looked at reviews on Glassdoor, et cetera, and this is really where I could see myself staying a long time.
Okay, no, that's good advice. Because I think that it's important to come in when when especially like that question that everyone gets is, tell me something about yourself.
Right.
And, that's the perfect time to open with that story and
Right.
to help frame the conversation and put the person you're interviewing with at ease, because I know I've been in a position where the person was like the perfect candidate, but it's like they had a job every 6 months, felt
Right.
like, it's
Right.
like,
Right.
what's wrong with this person?
Exactly. So it's like we want to give them the benefit of the doubt,
Mhm.
right? So as hiring managers, we want to give people the benefit of the doubt. And then I think all we're asking for is for that authenticity around, hey, here's what's been going on in my life, and here's how I want to be different.
Yes.
Right? Would that sell
Perfect.
you, Carolyn? Would you interview that person after that?
Yes, I would, because I think that, it would help me to just kind of put things in perspective and be more open to hearing like what happened and understanding that life happens. And,
Right.
yes, I would.
Yeah. For those parents out there, I have another story. Gosh, I have so many stories, Carolyn. Is this okay?
This is perfect.
Great. So I have a pretty tough hiring manager in a good way. Like, she's sharp, right? Like nothing gets past her.
Mm-hmm.
And the role that she was looking for required some very technical skills. This is a legal role.
Mm-hmm.
And I happened to find somebody that I looked for because it's a very niche role. So I'll go out and find people with that kind of a background.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little clue to all out there. Like, keep up your LinkedIn, keep it active, keep it
definitely.
current. I found this great attorney who had the skill set, and it looked on LinkedIn like she hadn't worked in 6 years. And I thought, I want to know. Like, I want to know what she's been doing for the last 6 years. Maybe she hasn't updated her LinkedIn. Yeah. So I reached out to her, and it turned out she had one child after the other. So she had planned to stay home, but then she got pregnant again. So she stayed home. And then one of the children had a disability. And so she stayed home a little bit longer. And then right when she was ready to go back to work, COVID hit. So, fast forward to 2020, when she was getting ready to look again, COVID hit. Homeschooling, she needed to transition immediately to homeschooling, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, my heart was like, this woman, right? Like,
she's
I'm a mom.
Trying.
She's trying. Like, I get it. So I pitched her to the hiring manager, and she's like, I love her.
Wow.
Yeah. She's like, so kind of goes back to just be authentic, tell your story. And
exactly.
Great outcome.
That is a great outcome. That is. Now tell me, so let's shift over to like the applicant. Is there especially if you're going for a leadership role, is there any particular way that they should prepare to demonstrate their leadership in other ways than, I understand 1 + 1 = 2. I got that covered.
Yeah.
But I'm going to yell at the person and tell them 1 + 1 = 2. I don't want that person.
So for leadership roles, I think this goes for anybody, but particularly with leadership roles, is companies or hiring managers want to know that you've done your research. So I always think about it like preparing for high school finals, right? Like your finals are a week from now, right? Usually with leadership positions, they're not scheduled for the next day, right? Those interviews, you usually have about a week, because you're also typically interviewing with leaders in the organization. So you have a week. So take that week as if you're studying for finals in high school. So understand who you're meeting with. You need to know first, last names, what those profiles look like, maybe what those leaders have done in their experience that has changed an organization for the good. And also, do your research on the company, the history, read the headlines. I mean, maybe that's the biggest tip here, right? Read the headlines. I had a candidate the other day say to me, I heard, the company you work for got bought by another company. I'm like, I didn't hear that. So I Googled it and it turned out he was reading like an April Fool's,
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So I'd say read the headlines, but, make sure they're from a reputable, legitimate source, right? Reputable, legitimate source. And then, create your own headline, right? So the company, whatever role that is, like, let's say, it's I don't know, I'm putting some things out there, a role around sustainability, or a role around diversity, equity, and inclusion, or a role around operations. What is the company's headlines around what's been happening in their business? Okay, now think about what you've done in your past experience that really creates your headline. If you were going to be the topic of a news article, what have you done? And that could be in your last role. It could be what you've done personally outside in a non-for-profit or philanthropic kind of a way.
It's interesting you say that because I have a technique where I will, like, especially when I was the last position that I had interviewed with, it was a really large role, and I created a press release that I said that, that in my mind they would use to introduce me.
Yeah.
And it did help me to like fold in my experience and why I'm there.
Right.
So I was all ready for them.
That is great. No, see, you're a leader.
So, and I think that's important as well, because when I was on the hiring side, I worked for the mayor and city council for like 25 years. So when I worked for the last council president, I love when people, he was a big supporter of like seniors and youth. And I love when people came in and talked about like or made some reference to that. That told me that they, at least went to the website. So I think that is important to do the research. And I'm glad to know that that is still in style, even though the thank you card note is dwindling. But
I think companies want to hear, depending on the role you're going for and what's happening in the company, how is their purpose aligned with your purpose, right? And that could be the company's purpose. It could be the job purpose. What is that headline?
Yes. Yeah. No, this is excellent. Excellent. I'm sure a lot of people are getting some value out of this, because I think especially during the Great Resignation.
Yes.
And, I've been saying to like especially my clients, let's turn the Great Resignation into like the Great Reassessment.
Ooh.
Or the great, realignment, because it can benefit both sides. It's not just employees looking to understand how to not be burned out in a job, or not feel like 24 hours in a day is like never ever enough. But it's also a time for employers to just take a look at how they're operating in this new work environment, and building in some flexibilities that people can actually live in the world that we live in now, or operate in the world that we live in now.
I think it's a very special time right now. It is exciting. I think companies, to your point, like are really exploring those different options, and they're trying to figure out, how do we take that professional world for the employee and their personal world and just, intertwine them so that people feel like they can tackle both, and they're not and they're not, what's the word? Like they're not sacrificing one over the other, and that's something I think, that I don't know how it's been for you during the pandemic, Carol. I'm going to assume it's been very similar, is that we've all tried to find this new balance, and it got worse before it was getting better, right?
Yes.
I mean, my husband was like, do I need to send you somewhere for help? And I'm like, I think so. I mean, I was like that professional, but also I was the mom, and then my kids were at home. And I mean, I can't tell you, I was like, maybe I need to quit my job. Maybe I need to go part-time. I was going crazy. And thankfully, and like I said, I've been hearing from other people that I talk to all the time, how companies are instituting change. Great. Yeah.
Now, I've been hearing a lot of employees, leaders, people in leadership positions who have been experiencing just a lot of burnout just because of like the people leaving. And so now the task of having to give other people who are there, who are staying in the company extra work. And and some have been successful and some not successful, depending on really their level of emotional intelligence. From my side, that's what I'm finding, because there is a special skill to get work done through others, as I have learned over the years. And emotional intelligence is one of the things that, for me, made it successful and not as, I don't know, complicated as it can be, because humans can be complicated. So, but, I'm finding people are like jumping ship because they are just like being hammered with extra responsibilities, and just, I call it the grass is greener, I think, on the other side.
Right. No, it's a very interesting time. There was, the unemployment claims are an all-time low since like, I think 2017. And that just tells us like people aren't even asking for unemployment anymore. They're just saying, I'm out. Like, I'll figure it out. Like, and you're right. Like people are exploring maybe their own career, like an entrepreneurial type, career. They're breaking out to do their own businesses, or maybe they're just taking a break. I don't know. I'm of the mindset, like, do you do what you need to do, if you can swing it, swing it.
I think that's what's happening, as people have seen like life just disappear, lives disappear in front of them.
Right.
They are trying to understand what's working for them now.
Yeah, 100%. And then, the other thing, the flip side of that coin is like, wow, there's a lot of opportunity out there.
Yeah.
And if you want that next job or that dream job, like, now's the time to go for it and apply for it, because the competition will always be there, but I always tell people it's not as great as you might think, for any one position we may have open. It could mean, 50 people are applying to, 500 people are applying. But at the end of the day, the hiring manager, or I should say the recruiters, that the resumes that we pull out, it's still only like 10 resumes. So now is really the time to explore, because there's so many open positions, and it's your time to set your ground rules around what you want and what you're looking for. Be it, is this position remote? Like, if that's important to you, you can ask that question right now without being apologetic, right?
Yes, that is true. That used to be a bad word.
Right. It used to be a bad word. Now it's a great word. It's like, I was expecting that question. Let me answer that for you.
Right.
So you can ask, is this position remote? How's the work-life balance, right? People are very conscientious of employee well-being right now. So if the work-life balance isn't there, you move on. If it is there, you keep having the conversation. What are those important aspects that are going to help you feel really good about that next job. Like, explore everything right now and be the first ones in, because as we were just saying, there's a lot of people that have exited the workforce. So be the one that's like, hi, I'm ready.
I'm ready. Yes. Yeah. Well, you kind of went into my next question, which was, give us your best leadership tip for those looking to get their the job and career of their dreams.
Yeah. Best leadership tip I would say is know who you are, know what you're looking for, and know what you're willing to leave behind. So, my best conversations with people, candidates, if I can use that word, job seekers, are people that really know who they are, that can say, here's who I am, here's what I bring to the table, here's what I'm looking for, here's what I'm not looking for, here's what doesn't work for me. Can you tell me how this job meets what I'm looking for, what I'm not looking for? I mean, in your own kind of way, right? You want to be complimentary, you want to be positive, but you want to find out those answers. I always relate, and I don't know how popular it is to say something like this, but I always relate the job search to dating.
Yes. Right? That's true. No, I agree.
It's dating, right? Like, if you're the hiring manager and I'm the job seeker, it is a two-way, conversation, right? Like, Carolyn, you might be assessing me for, is she everything I've ever wanted in an employee?
Right.
And I'm assessing, is Carolyn everything that I want in a hiring manager? And how does she represent the company, and what the company's position is on XYZ, right?
Yes.
So yeah, I think it's really knowing yourself and knowing what you're willing to take on and what you're not.
And I would say on either side, it reminded me of a quote by Maya Angelou, who says, when they show you who they are, believe them. And so I think that can be applied on both sides. When, if you are, if someone is late for the interview, or, unless, like, I don't know, there's some extenuating circumstance, then, they may be a person that has a tardy issue. And if, there's on the other side, if you have the hiring manager is, not paying attention, looking at their phone, and you may have trouble just connecting to, like, understanding and getting clarity on job duties, or what's expected. So I think
true. And you only have like 30 minutes to an hour with that person. So, it's important to keep your eyes wide open. And I know in this time that we're doing Zoom interviews, right? I don't know how many people have gone back to in-person interviews, but taking in-person interviews for a moment, just speaking about that, when we do get back there, eyes wide open. When you walk up to the reception desk, when you walk through the hallways, take a look around, and what's the energy like, right? And then with Zoom, I'll say that if you feel like you need more time with that hiring manager as you get closer to the end of the process, ask for it. Ask for that extra time. Or if you feel like you're still having a hard time assessing, whether it's the right opportunity for you, ask to speak to additional people. Are there groups that this group interfaces with often? Is there somebody in the team that you would like the chance to speak with before making that final decision?
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I mean, because that's easy. It's easy, easier, I should say, when you are going to a physical location. But that's some good feedback on, how things are today, and doing all this by Zoom. And Zoom is not necessarily doomed, but Zoom, it makes it a little challenging to get the feel. But I think that was some good feedback for people. So one other question, this, we talked about, just what we were talking about, but your conversation is so awesome that I'm like thinking of all these things.
It's funny because, I scribbled some notes. I'm like, well, if there's time, maybe I'll bring this up. You want me to bring up a couple of things that I just
yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you again, Carolyn. This is exciting for me. I know you heard me one time and that was sort of just a riff situation. We're like, let's just talk, let's just do this. And the fact that you wanted to bring me on, I just want to say thank you again.
You're welcome. You are awesome. I could feel it when I saw you and I was like, she would be perfect.
Oh. Well, I mean, one of the things I wanted to bring up, because I think it always sort of shocks and surprises people, and I have to say that I am a victim of this as well, is for you women out there, when you look at job descriptions, an interesting fact that I see this over and over again, Google it if you want to, is that women tend to apply for positions when they meet 100% of the qualifications. 100, not like 80% or 90%, 100% of the qualifications, right? Like, asking for a degree. I have a degree. Is asking for a degree in this, in a particular field, check, or not, right?
Right.
So many years of experience, so many, having a particular skill set in an area. So what I thought was interesting is that women only apply if they meet 100% of the qualifications. Men, they apply if they meet only 60%.
60?
60!
Well, first of all, I'm one of the women that, like, if it's not 100%, then I'm like, oh, maybe, that's probably, and I go to the next. But, it's amazing that, men will just probably are like, well, I can do that.
I can do that. they need 10 years. I got 2. I got that. I can do that.
Exactly.
So, yeah. And I'm only saying this because, I want to give women the license out there to apply.
Yes.
I was doing some further digging around with that. And it's not because of our, some people say maybe it's because women set high bars for themselves and they feel like, well, I want to make sure that I hit 100% of those qualifications because I want to be able to do a good job. Right. It could be that, we tend to take like the safer bet route is a good way to think about it. Or it's that as we get to more of those senior level positions, we need more flexibility, right? Like we might need to leave early, a day or 2 a week to pick up the kids or, so that flexibility piece is important. So we tend to get a little nervous to apply for jobs that we don't feel, say what they say. Like there is flexibility, there isn't flexibility. So, I want to give the women the license out there to apply and to have those conversations. Now more than ever, as I mentioned, companies are being more flexible. There's a lot of hybrid models being implemented where you're in the office 3 days a week or 2 days a week. So, that's a lot of flexibility right there, right? So it's about having the authentic, honest conversations, I'll say. And if something is interesting to you, apply. You don't have to meet 100% of qualifications. You just meet 60%. That's your competition.
So you should be asking yourself the question, either I can do that or I've done that.
Yeah, I would say so, because as I started to allude, and I could probably have a whole another hour conversation about this, is that, job descriptions, they're either a lot more flexible than what you might think, or they might be more narrow. You just never know. The only way you know is if you try. Yeah. And then you may get the interview, you may not, but isn't it better that you tried?
That is true. Yeah.
It's just one button. Send,
It's either yes or no.
Either yes or no. Yeah. I have hiring managers all the time. They're like, well, it requires 10 years of experience, but I'll take somebody who has 7. But I can't put that in a job description. I have to put 10. Right? But then I have other hiring managers are like, minimum 10, really hoping for 12. So it's
Right.
like, we never know.
That is true. That is true. And I guess does that spill over into like the salary piece of things as well?
It can.
Okay.
Yeah. And the other interesting thing, and I don't know how many people know this, but gosh, I want to say about 5 years ago, if not longer, certain states had adopted the do not ask past salary. So if a company asked, what were you making your last role, they would be fined thousands of dollars. So as a blanket rule now, because more and more states have adopted these this regulation, as a blanket rule, most companies don't ask, what were you making in your previous role? So the only question they really can ask now is, what are your expectations for your next role?
Okay.
So again, know who you are.
Right.
Know what you're willing to accept. It's that Kenny Loggins song, and got no one to roll them, you hold
right.
Right? Like, I really want, what was that? It's know when to walk away, know when to run. Like
the whole song, right?
The whole song. That is all about salary negotiation right there. I love that song. Love it. You got to know when to hold them.
Right.
Know when to hold them. And so, yeah, like if for you, you're like, gosh, I really, my last role, like, I'm going to say this like in my head, right? Like my last role I was making, I'm just going to use 100, just I'm making 100. I'm currently working. I'd love an increase to, in my next role. Maybe it's a step up. I'm really hoping for like 120 to 140, let's say. But gosh, if they came back to me at 115, would I walk away? Maybe not. So really my threshold is 115. But I think it's good to say, to the person you're speaking to on the other line, do you mind sharing with me the salary range for this position? And they have to answer, so they'll say something like, well, the range is between 110 to 135. And you can say, great, that's basically my salary range. I was hoping for 120 to 140, but we should definitely continue conversations.
So what happens if they say, that's awesome, I was looking for 135?
Wait, if the candidate said I was looking for 135?
Because if they're looking for the top end, does that usually pose a problem?
No, I'd say no, because if they said then you can say something like, I was really hoping for 120 to 140. So the upper end of your base salary is probably where I'd need to be.
Okay. Yeah. That's a good way to phrase it.
Yeah.
Because
and then you can soften it up with like, it also, of course, depends on the total package and benefits and move on. Go. Yes. Move on.
Right. And that free parking you get, now your salary is like at 180. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. No, that's good to know.
Pass. Yeah. I mean, companies are interesting. I mean, there's bonus, sometimes there's equity, sometimes they have really good health care. They've got a good 401k. They've got great vacation. They've got the hybrid model. Like, you got to consider all of those factors. But, I always tell people, gosh, I hope it's not 100% about the money. Like, you got to be close, right? But if you're off by 2, 3, 5,000, like, is that really make it or break it? Like, that's only you can answer that. Right.
Yeah. I mean, it all just comes down to how much you need to live.
Yeah. How much you need to live. Yeah, exactly. Or
have some fun.
And have some fun. Right. It goes back to your well-being too, right? Like, like, gosh, I was really hoping for this, but the company only works 4 days a week. So I have that whole extra day.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. There's a lot of interesting models coming out. My dad was telling me in Europe, they're testing out the 4-day-week model. I'm like, bring that to the US.
Yes, definitely. I would love if that was the case. That, when I was in a traditional job, I should say. But because I feel like you could get the same amount of work done, and then you have a mental health day.
Totally.
So, and I had a supervisor like back in I guess it was the 90s, which doesn't seem that long ago to me, but apparently it was. But
seem long.
I know. And so she would take like once a month, she would take mental health days. And this was, no, actually it was in the 80s. So this was a time where, it was like in fashion to come to work with a cold, come to work, work late, come in early, work late, work through lunch, all that other stuff that is unhealthy.
Right.
But this particular supervisor, director, she was like, I need a mental health day.
Way ahead of her time.
Yes. And so I always thought about that when I was, working in city government and would get stressed and from all the competing priorities and all this other stuff. And I was like, I need to take a mental health day.
Yeah.
Now I understand what she was doing.
Right.
So anything else you want to share with us?
Anything else? I mean, I'm curious what your listeners might be interested in, to be honest. But no, I think that's it. I think, well, maybe one last thing is like, if you're feeling stuck, and you feel comfortable with the person you're speaking to at the company, to ask for suggestions on, how you could do things differently, or was it a, skill set, or was it an interview style, whatever you can find out to improve on your interview or resume, so that you do have success.
This is a debrief if you don't get the position.
Yeah, okay. I think so. I think, I think it does take a little bit of bravery to ask, like, you can ask it like, listen, I wanted to thank you for your time, and I really appreciate you for reaching out and letting me know the direction you've decided to head in. But, just for my own growth and development, if there's anything you can share with me around how I could have maybe presented myself differently, or maybe a skill set that you think I need to develop, open to just hearing, just for my own personal growth.
No, that's a good suggestion, because I think, we've all had that job that we really wanted, didn't get, and wasn't sure what happened. Right. It was like, what did I do? You automatically blame yourself about something you did, and which it could have just been something totally not even involving you. Maybe the budget changed, or you just don't know.
Yeah, you don't know. And the other thing is, going back to dating, sometimes companies save you from them. If that makes any sense. Yep. Like, I've had hiring managers say, wow, that was a fantastic candidate, but they need work-life balance. They got a little baby, and we work 70, 80 hours a week. There's no way. So how does somebody like me go back to the person and say, sorry, you didn't get the job because we don't want to kill you. We don't want your baby to have a vendetta against us. So sometimes it's they know they have other reasoning for why it's not going to be the right job for you. Right. And they're saving you from maybe a bad fit. I have another story. See, a lot of stories. I interviewed for a job, going back to how many people you've interviewed, right? With that one job, I interviewed with like 5 people, and I had a great experience with 4 of those 5. One of those interviews, terrible. I like this kid. Like, I get along with 99.9% of the people out there. She and I were like oil and water, and we felt it right away. It was so strange. And I didn't get the job. And I thought to myself, I have a feeling why. I just knew. I'm like, there's no reason, because everybody was like so excited, like, oh, we should move you to next round, et cetera, et cetera. Fast forward a year later, the same opening came up. I got the job. The person was still there. We were still oil and water. That did not change. So it made for a very unpleasant working environment for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
And I ended up leaving, I
Wow.
mean, for other personal reasons. And this person, I ended up actually rebuilding our relationship. We kind of just put it out there on the table. We just put the elephant in the room, and we were like, look, I don't think we're ever going to be best friends, but we got to work together. Like,
Right.
from that point on, we were good.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll never forget that experience, that sometimes there's going back to eyes wide open, right? Like, sometimes you really want that job, you really want that company.
Yeah.
If something isn't right, you got to listen to that, because
Yes.
nothing is going to change. So like dating,
Yep.
there might be a red flag. You're like, that's okay. This person's super attractive.
Right.
This is gonna work. I know this is gonna work.
I have this gut feeling that
Yeah.
something's not right here. Always go with your gut. It will never steer you wrong.
Right.
I am a total witness to that one.
Good.
We'll need another hour for me to go into that, so we won't.
Yeah. Thank you for letting me share.
You're welcome. So Myrna, as we wrap up, tell me how you put more kindness into the world.
Oh. I would say that I don't know, I love people. That's my that's my Achilles heel. I would love to get everybody a job, I want to be the Santa Claus of job giving. So when I can, I do try to help people. I try to be very transparent around, what's going on maybe with their resume, or something that they could say a little bit better. And when I can, I try to do it before they go into the interview.
Right.
I hope that there's HR people out there that are also as comfortable as I, because you feel like, am I going to get in trouble for something like this? But I feel like people need to hear it, and I want to be able to help people. And if I can do that, kindness of helping them, like, hey, I noticed you missed the date on your resume, or you spelled the word manager wrong. That happens more often than you would ever imagine. Like, people spell it manager.
Oh my God.
MANGER. But they're, so I think that's what we all need to do is have is give people grace and respect, to let them know that, hey, we're all human. We're all not, we are certainly not perfect.
Right.
So let's help each other, like, be as perfect as we can be. Right.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. No, that's awesome.
Thank you.
And we have a lot of stories, I tell you.
Are you available this afternoon?
Right, exactly. Because that reminded me of that same supervisor who took the mental health days when she hired me. Well, I'll back up. When she hired me, she said to me, I don't expect you to be in this position for any longer than 3 years, because it was an entry-level position.
Yeah.
And I was like, what kind of job is this? So she said, I am going to give you everything you need to be successful. Awesome. And it's going to be up to you to use that information and those opportunities to move yourself forward. And she did. She gave me everything I needed to be successful. I was a young African-American woman in a primarily white male dominated association. And she put me in a room with people. I was 24, put me in a room with people, but it taught me, and she did give me, some skills and some training to present myself in the way that, was representative of the organization. And but it helped me to grow, and she let me sit in rooms to watch things. And I learned about how to, like, not look crazy on a TV camera if I ever got on one. I didn't plan to get on one, but but still, I she let me participate in trainings and things that, weren't necessarily part of my job, but exposed me to things that I could grow. So, that is what you do is change someone's life, I'm sure, because I'm still talking about this, that was in the 80s.
Yeah, no, I get it. And I think that's why I do it is, first of all, we need more leaders like her. Like, we need to all just slow down a minute,
Right.
And we need to help the youth come up,
Yes.
because,
Yes.
I didn't come from, now I'm going to cry. I didn't come from a family of business people.
Mm-hmm.
My father was a teacher. My mother was a secretary, and nobody taught me how to be in business.
Right.
And so I looked to others as mentors.
Yeah.
I watched people, even if they weren't my mentors, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they were my mentors. They didn't know it, but I was
Right.
watching them, right?
Yep.
So all you leaders out there, remember, you're being watched by the young.
Definitely.
And I had a recruiter a long time ago help direct me, and was very honest and transparent with me. And so I think I carry him with me. I carry that experience to say, gosh, we need more people helping people.
Yes.
Bringing more kindness.
Yes. Because it's enough out here for everyone.
Agree.
Enough. And, lifting each other up is only going to be helpful to the world. Now, first of all, it'll make you feel better. It gives the person some inspiration to help other people.
Right.
And so there you go, that kindness, getting kind, building on kindness. So
paying it forward.
It forward. Yes.
Paying it forward.
Yes. Yes. Well, Myrna, I'm going to act like we are actually on a podcast and not like just hanging out on the telephone.
Okay.
But tell everyone, because this has been really great. I just want to let you know.
Thank you.
But if someone has questions about, something that you've said, how can they reach you?
Sure. I have an email address you can use. It's a little long, so bear with me. But I think it will make sense. So info@rescue-me-Myrna.
I love it.
So my last name, as you were asking me earlier how to pronounce it,
right?
My husband is Persian, and in Farsi, Nejat means rescue.
Ah, nice.
I've taken on.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Thank you. So my name is spelled Myrna. So it's info@rescue-me-Myrna.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. And, it's going to be a blast. I can't wait for my listeners to just hear this information and to get all of the knowledge and listen to the stories that you told and draw something from that they can use to take the next step forward or shine their light or whatever they want to do with it to make themselves shine a little bit brighter in the world.
Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing too.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I've been reading your emails and
I'm glad someone's reading them.
Spreading goodness in the world.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. So until next time, be better today than yesterday. Be better tomorrow than today. Bye for now.